Good afternoon, everyone. My name is David Dillahunt, Interim Deputy Director of Communications for the City of Charlottesville. We've scheduled this virtual press conference to allow you, our local media partners, to receive information related to the city's fiscal year 2023 budget in advance of the formal presentation to Charlottesville City Council at their meeting tonight. There will be several budget work sessions in the coming weeks, and we know that you'll have additional questions as this process moves forward. The next budget work session will be this Thursday, March 10th at 6 p.m. via Zoom. Registration can be found at charlottesville.gov/Zoom. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our interim city manager, Mr. Michael C. Rogers, and Chrissy Hamill, our senior budget and management analyst. Mr. Rogers, do you have any opening remarks?
I do. First, I want to thank members of the media for joining us for this conversation, and let's call it a conversation. Let me say that as you know, the city manager is required to submit a budget to council by this date, and we will do that tonight. The budget has been put online by Ms. Hamill, so it's available to you. Let me say about this budget. We have worked with our experts internally and our leaders, our directors, who submitted their request for funding for the coming year. And we have relied upon our revenue experts, our team of revenue experts. And what we've come back with is a budget that's balanced as is required by state law and the charter. And this balanced budget is balanced with revenue that is generated through our assessment increase and increases in other taxes. Many of them are back up to their pre-COVID or nearly to their pre-COVID. A total of about $15 million in revenue for the budget for us to work with. As you will recall, based on a previous work session with council authorized staff to advertise a 10 cents tax increase that they would consider. We have included the 10 cents and the revenue that would generate from the 10 cents tax increase in the budget, but it's unallocated. There are a number of decisions for council to make. The school reconfiguration project being as well as its investments in affordable housing and other priorities that they have identified. And so council will have the option of drawing on up to 10 cents additional revenue as they grapple with some very challenging decisions that they will have to make. So Chrissy, you want to go through any particular points? Specifics?
Well, thanks so much. Specifics, just as Mr. Rogers indicated, the budget is balanced on the current 95-cent tax rate. There will be another decision factor for council that the Commissioner of Revenue has presented to them with regard to some fairly significant increases on personal property valuations. And he will be making a recommendation to council to equalize that rate. Those are two sort of, in addition to the school project, those are two operating side decisions that council will be faced with.
It's important to note too that with respect to the school's request, which and school takes about 37% of the city's total budget, we have totally funded in this budget, in the balanced budget, $4.2 million requested by schools for their operating. In addition, we have included money for the reconfiguration project for 23. It's another $2.5 million that would continue to work on the school configuration project, and there's already 7.4 million in the capital plan for the school configuration project. It remains open question, and this is what council is going to have to grapple with, is how do we finance the total project long term and the impact that it will have on the rest of our capital improvement plan. Are there any questions?
Thank you both. For the media in attendance, we do have time to cycle through everyone a couple of times during this briefing. If you ask something that needs further research on our part, we'll note it and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Please use the raise hand function in Zoom to ask your question. We will take those questions in order that hands are raised. If you're joining us by phone, you may press *9 to raise your hand. The first question is going to come from Max Marcella at NBC 29. I'm going to spotlight you all here just in case they need the full screen. There we go. He asks, without the sales tax due to the General Assembly's action in Richmond, what is the plan for school reconfiguration, that project, if councilors agree on the $75 million price tag?
Well, as I indicated in my opening, as directed by council during its work session on the budget, we included a 10 cents tax increase in the budget, but we did not allocate it. We balanced the budget based on available revenues that did not include the full financing of the $75 million, which the balanced budget will not cover. So the council has the facility with the revenue that would be generated by the 10 cents tax to allocate funds for the school configuration project, but that's a council decision. And whether it's the full 75 million or some portion of it, it is the council decision. And the only way that that could be done is through the increase in the property tax rates as proposed.
All right, Max, and if you want to type a follow-up, we will come back for your follow-up to that. Sean Tubbs is next. He asks, I wanted to ask more about the unallocated process. Can you speak a little more about how that process will work?
It's there, $9.2 million that would be generated by a 10 cents property tax increase is available for council to decide what to do with it. They could decide that indeed to increase up to 10 cents, or they could decide to only increase up to a portion of it, or not at all. As we note in my message to the council, my letter, nothing's really required for 23. It's not, that would not stop anything if there is no decision about a tax increase for 23. Because of the heavy lifting of the project would be 24 and beyond. So 23, council has the option to make a decision on an increase or not to increase or some portion of the 10 cents.
All right, going next to Ginny Bixby. First question, going off of the previous question about school reconfiguration, are other budget items or CIP items aside from the school reconfiguration reliant upon a real estate tax increase, given that the current CIP is unaffordable, or is reconfiguration the sticking point, making the CIP unaffordable?
I would say that, of course, in any CIP plan, you're going to have more than you can immediately finance. There are important projects there that are financed. And I suppose one of the options would be to decide not to finance some projects in order to generate more funding in the CIP for a particular project like school configuration. So that's the option that council has. But the CIP, if we were to, if it was decided to fund the school configuration solely through the current CIP by delaying or eliminating some projects, that would have a tremendous impact on our overall capital improvement plan and would require decisions to undo some decisions that have been made, to decide that some things that were a priority and important to invest in before are no longer that important or will have to wait.
Yeah, and I would just add that our CIP plan has generally been in the $70 to $80 million range prior to the school reconfiguration project. And one of the things that we've have the ability to do is to manage the CIP and the projects that are in there based on our affordability. So if we had the difference with the school reconfiguration project and why the tax increase is being pushed forward is that we're dumping in 75 million all at one time. And so there's not sort of the benefit of time in either paying off older debt or managing other projects or moving them around. It's putting in a whole bunch of dollars at once. That's creating the need for the tax increase.
Okay. I see a question from Macy Moores. The police department says that they are experiencing the lowest staffing levels in years because they can't compete with other local agencies. Police say they can't hire due to low pay and no incentives. What is Roger's response to that? Well, I've talked to the chief about that. I talked to the leadership in the police department. Yes, in fact, there is a challenge there. They are at a low level now of recruits. I think it's down to 91 and 92 from an authorized strength of 125. And there has been some leakage of personnel to other departments because of funding, and we're looking at that. And we will find a way to address that with council. But that is a major priority that we are aware of, and we understand that action is needed.
Now, a follow-up from Max Marcilla with NBC 29. If council votes not to raise the real estate tax, or if they vote to make it an increase of between 1 and 5 cents, what is the maximum amount you could see being spent on reconfiguration?
The project, according to the school system, is $75 million. And the maximum amount that can be spent is what council determines they're willing to spend on it. That might be 1 cent, that might be 5 cents. If that is the case, then that would require some adjustments, I think, in the menu of choices for the school system.
We have another question from Sean Tubbs. One counselor has been asking for UVA to pay a payment in lieu of taxes. Have any conversations been initiated about that process?
Not in my brief time here. That question was raised to the president of UVA at a Chamber of Commerce meeting several weeks back, a forum that we had about payment in lieu of taxes. And his response was, well, the legislature gives them money. for their needs, and they're not sure that they could turn around and give it to anyone else. So I don't know if that is the standard position, but I think that the reality is lots of universities where they are predominant in a community do payments in lieu of taxes. All of them are tax exempt. In some cases, they consume a very high percentage of the land in a community that goes untaxed, but yet they require services. And the way they've worked that out is to pay make a payment in lieu of taxes contribution to a city. So that is certainly a topic that I'm sure the council is going to want to put on the table for further discussion with leaders at the university and the General Assembly, for that matter, if that is the stumbling block.
And a reminder to folks joining us right now from the media, you may press raise hand and I can actually try and bring you in to ask your question. If you're joining us by phone, I see there is one phone call participant. *9 is what you press to raise your hand, and then I can allow you to talk and we'll see if you actually come through. If not, then we can take your question in chat. While we wait on that, I see a follow-up from Sean Tubbs. What is the recommended personal property tax rate at the moment?
Chrissy?
We are still working on that. So the valuations just were provided, and the commissioner is working through those numbers and those assessments, and he will be coming to council as part of our budget development process to make a recommendation on the exact rate. But the idea with the new rate would be that the personal property tax revenue would essentially have very little increase, and that is what's included in the budget now. We've included a modest $200,000 increase, which is basically to account for additional vehicles that may be coming on the tax rolls, but not for the increased assessment.
Jenny Biggs asks, community members have called for some divestment from the police budget, with some funding being allocated to Marcus Alert and mental health services. Especially over the past year, there's been criticism from community members and even several counselors that the police budget wasn't transparent enough. Was this considered in this budget? Were any funds allocated to mental health intervention risk reduction programs within the city? Are there plans to move in this direction? What's your recollection?
So I would say that in terms of the funding for mental health and risk reduction, I'm not aware of any new programs specifically. We certainly, there are programs within human services that address some of those, but not to the degree I think in which you're referring to as a new program. There, in terms of transparency, we are rolling out a visualization that will be live on Tuesday morning that will allow you or the public to go to any department within the city and view a line item budget comparison from 22 to 23.
All right, that was the last chat question. Do we have any additional questions from those in attendance? Feel free to raise your hand with the raise hand function, *9 if you're joining by phone, or type it down in chat and it will be seen and read. I'm scrolling back through the existing chat questions. I believe we've gotten to all of those as well. Sean Tubbs asks, still coming through the CIP, but does this budget mean that the West Main Street project will be unfunded?
So there are no new dollars included for the West Main Street project. The dollars that were previously appropriated still remain intact. But I guess the question would be up to council to discuss whether or not to move forward with any of that and with VDOT as well.
I see we still have everyone in attendance. Max, Macy, Jenny Bixby, if you all have any additional questions as well. Sean Tubbs, of course, if you would like further questions, we still have some time here. Feel free to type in chat or raise your hand. And Max Marcella has his hand raised. We're going to try this now.
All right. Is this, can you hear me?
We can hear
We
you.
can hear you, good.
How about that? Well, this is a big step forward. Anyway, good to see you guys. Sorry to keep hammering you with the CIP questions. I have a feeling this is a council decision, but if, you know, the tax doesn't increase and you need to think about what projects to substitute to fund the school reconfiguration. Again, I know it's a council decision, but is there any project or projects that you guys would recommend be among the first to scrap to put more money towards schools?
Max, we're not going to give you a list. I will simply say that there is a CIP work session with council in a couple of weeks, I think.
March 31st.
On March 31st. And at that time, there will be a full stripped down presentation of what's in the CIP and what progress is being made and what funds are available to be reallocated to some other project. But don't have a list that we can give you right now.
Yeah, and the only thing I would add to that is, you know, we unfunded 18.25 million from West Main Street. And we unfunded $5 million that was previously allocated for a parking structure. Both of those large projects were unfunded essentially, and that's what got us from the 50 to the 75. And then just generally speaking, there aren't a lot of big dollar projects like that make up a difference. So as council goes through those decisions, it will be a lot of, you know, small projects that would have to be clicked off in order to make up significant dollars to put towards the school reconfiguration project.
Gotcha. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Max.
And Jenny Bixby included an additional question in chat. Does this current draft budget include funding related to collective bargaining? She says, i.e. funding the two, I think, staffing positions that have been suggested by city staff. In other funding for collective bargaining, is other funding for collective bargaining included in this? And what does that look like?
We did include one position.
One position is included in the HR budget. We also just had council reappropriate $625,000 that had previously been budgeted for the comp study. That has now been allocated to be used for collective bargaining. And I think that's it.
Yeah, that's it. And so that the money that was allocated for collective bargaining was to allow us to engage a consulting assistance to work on the development of the ordinance, et cetera. That does not include any new salary increase that comes out of a collective bargaining situation. That would have to be dealt with at a future time, either through a budget amendment or a future budget.
I guess we'll do one more round of opportunity here for folks. Sean has indicated that he's good. He's gotten his questions for now, and he acknowledges that there are the long series of work sessions ahead. So yes, indeed. Right. Jenny Bixby, Macy Moores, those still on the call here. I see your hand raised again, Jenny. Let's try and see if we can get you on with us. All right, you are live.
Okay, amazing, great. I just had a question regarding funding for, I know there's a presentation later today, but just, I'm not great with money. If you all can explain to me the jail renovations, I know that there's kind of a weird formula with how much the city would contribute to that because of, it has to do with like the number of inmates who are from the city versus the county. I'd had a conversation with the city councilor about this a couple weeks ago, but I was wondering if you could just kind of explain that in more specific detail, how that works, how that would work.
Well, it gets down to you charge for what you put in. You know, is a simple way to say it, and on an inmate basis, and I suppose some capital as well. And for this year, I think going forward, we are have a less of a bill from the jail than in past years. I think we're down a couple $100,000. Yeah.
Yep, we are. And so the operational contribution is based on our inmate population. And I think that's a multi-year average. We could look that up and get that for you. In terms of the debt service, I'm not sure how that's structured, to be honest with you. We had some debt service that we were paying our share from the jail on some prior renovations that were recently just paid off. And that also contributed to some reductions in our jail contribution for, I think it was 21 and maybe 22. So I'm not sure what that formula might look like going forward for the new project, but we could follow up for you.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful. Thanks.
Okay, and I see Macy Moores has asked if there's anything else important for the public to know at this point.
No, it's all there. You know, we put it all out, and so council's gonna have at it.
All righty. Well, I guess we will end it there for now. Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Thank you, Chrissy. And thank all of you for joining us today. Feel free to
Thank
reach
you
out
all.
as we go through this budget process. Just a reminder, the formal presentation before City Council will be this evening during the regular business meeting at 6:30. The next budget work session will be this Thursday, March 10th at 6 p.m. via Zoom. Registration can be found at charlottesville.gov/Zoom. Have a great afternoon, everyone.
Thank you.